Preparing for a new arrival is incredibly exciting, but let's be honest, figuring out your rights at work can be a real headache. So, we're going to make it simple. In this explainer, we'll break down the official UK government guidelines on maternity leave and pay, so you know exactly where you stand.
We are going to skip all the complex legal jargon and just give you a straightforward guide. This is all about making sure you feel confident about what you're entitled to, so you can focus on what's really important.
Okay, first things first, and this is super important. Leave and pay are two totally separate things. Leave is all about the time you can take off work. Pay is about the money you get while you're on that leave. They have different rules, so we're going to tackle them one by one.
Right, you're going to hear this word statutory thrown around a lot. All it means is the legal minimum that your employer has to give you by law. Some companies might offer you more, which is great, but this is the baseline that everyone is guaranteed if they qualify.
All right, let's dive in. First up, we'll look at the first piece of the puzzle, the time you're allowed to take off.
So, the big number you need to remember is 52. 52 weeks. That's a full year. And get this, if you're an employee, you get this no matter how long you've worked there, how many hours you do, or what you earn.
Now that year is broken down into two chunks. The first 26 weeks, that's called ordinary maternity leave. The second 26 weeks are called additional maternity leave. The main thing to know is your employment rights are protected across that entire year. But, and this is a big one, you don't have to take the full 52 weeks if you don't want to. The only bit that's compulsory is the first 2 weeks right after your baby arrives, or 4 weeks if you work in a factory. That part is non-negotiable, and it's there for your health and recovery.
Okay, so the big question is, when can you actually start all this? Well, you've got some choice. The earliest you can usually start is 11 weeks before your due date, but just know it can also start automatically. For example, if the baby comes early, your leave kicks in the next day. Same thing if you're off sick with a pregnancy-related illness in the last month before your due date.
And here's some really good news. While you're on maternity leave, your core employment rights are totally protected. That means you're still entitled to any pay rises that are given out, you keep building up your holiday time, and of course, you have the right to return to your job.
All right, so that's the time off sorted. Now, let's talk about the bit everyone wants to know about, the money. Let's dig into how statutory maternity pay, or SMP, actually works.
Okay, this is a really important difference to catch. You get 52 weeks of leave, but the statutory pay only covers up to 39 of those weeks. It's a key distinction because it usually means the last 13 weeks of your leave are unpaid.
So how does it actually work? Well, it's basically a two-part system. For the first 6 weeks, it's pretty generous. You get 90% of your average weekly earnings. After that, for the next 33 weeks, it drops down to a standard flat rate set by the government, or 90% of your earnings if that happens to be less.
And just a quick heads up, because it's something people often forget, this money isn't tax-free. It's treated just like your normal salary, so tax and national insurance will be taken off before it hits your bank account.
Okay, so now you know what you can get. But how do you actually, get it? Let's walk through the practical steps you need to take.
Don't worry, this isn't as scary as it sounds. When you boil it down, the whole process really just comes down to hitting a couple of key deadlines.
The main thing to get your head around is that you have different deadlines for telling them about your leave and your pay. For your leave, you've got to let them know your plans by the 15-week mark before your due date. For pay, it's at least 28 days' notice. And to actually get the money, you'll need to hand over some proof. I'm going to say it again because it is so important. That 15-week deadline, that's the one you absolutely cannot miss. If there's one date you circle on your calendar in huge red marker, make it that one. Okay, so what about this proof they need? Well, you don't need it to secure your time off, but it is absolutely essential for getting paid. It can be a letter from your doctor or midwife, but usually it's a form called a MAT B1 certificate, which you'll get from your midwife around 20 weeks into your pregnancy. All right, let's wrap up with a few final tips and answer some of those what-if questions you might have spinning around in your head. Okay, this is a huge worry for a lot of people. Maybe you're self-employed or you haven't been with your company for very long. So what happens then? Right, if you don't qualify, your employer can't just leave you hanging. They legally have to give you a form. It's called an SMP1, explaining exactly why you're not eligible. Now, the great news is you can then take that form and apply for something called maternity allowance directly from the government. So there's another path to support. And hey, don't forget, there might be other help out there for you. Depending on your personal situation, it's always worth looking into things like universal credit, child benefit, or even a one-time grant. So definitely check to see what you might be able to get.
And one last thing, and this is a big one. Always check your contract or your staff handbook. Everything we've talked about is the legal minimum. Your company might have its own more generous maternity scheme that could offer you more pay. You don't want to miss out on that.
Look, knowing your rights is your superpower here. It's the first step to feeling in control and ready for this amazing new chapter. Hopefully, this has given you the clarity you need to go out there and claim everything you're entitled to with total confidence.